A
Please
werewolf
don't hurt
shifter
me.
romance audiobook. A whisper from the
I
moon
don't know
goddess.
anything, I swear.
The air is thick with the scent of pine and distant
I don't know
thunder when
anything,
her
I
voice
swear.
finds me, soft as moonlight,
I don't
ancient as
know
the
anything, I
stars.
swear.
Little wolf, she murmurs,
I don't
her
know
words
anything, I
brushing against my
swear.
soul like silk. You were never meant
I
to
don't know
break.
anything,
You were
I
meant to
swear.
burn, and from those ashes, rise. I died once. I felt my heart stop under the weight of his rejection. I carried his child into the dark with me, alone. But the goddess saw more than my pain. She saw the fire I buried beneath years of chains. She saw the queen I was always destined to become. And so she pulled me back, not to suffer again, but to rewrite every tear, every scar, every whispered no into a roar of my own making. This is my story. Not of the girl who was broken, but of the woman who came back to claim what was always hers. My name is Samantha, and this time, I reject the fate that tried to destroy me. Now turn the page, little wolf. The moon is full. The hunt begins. Chapter 1. The Rejection. The wet, heavy sound of chains dragging across stone filled the silence first. Slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat counting down. My ragged breathing followed, shallow and broken, close enough that you could almost feel the damp chill of the dungeon air on your skin. Silence stretched. Then my whisper cut through it, soft but sharp enough to draw blood. They say silence is peaceful. They're wrong. Silence is just the pause before the executioner swings. I lay on my side on the cold, unforgiving floor of the pack's deepest dungeon. The stone bit into my ribs, into my cheek, into every place my body touched it. The air reeked of mildew and old blood, mostly mine. 5 years of it, layered like sediment on those walls. My once flawless porcelain skin had become a map of cruelty. Purple bruises bloomed across my arms. Red welts crisscrossed my back from the last whipping. Faint silver scars never quite faded because the chains had been laced with poison. My platinum blonde hair that once caught moonlight like spun silk, lay matted and dull around me, streaked with grime and dried tears. It fanned across the floor in tangled waves, the ends soaked in a shallow puddle of water that tasted of rust when I dared to lick my cracked lips. The metallic tang of blood coated my tongue. My split lip throbbed with every heartbeat. In the distance, wolves howled, a mournful, echoing chorus that rattled through the stone corridors and settled in my bones. I had once loved that sound. It had meant freedom, pack, home. Now it only reminded me how far I had fallen. The phantom burn of silver chains still lingered on my wrists and ankles, even though they had removed them hours earlier. They no longer bothered binding me. I was too weak to run, too broken to fight. I was not just a slave. I had become the living embodiment of 5 years of vengeance taken on the wrong body. My chest ached with more than bruises that night. There was a secret warmth low in my belly, a fragile, impossible life that should never have existed. His child, Kade's child, the pup I had carried in silence for weeks, hidden beneath layers of pain and shame. And beneath that warmth, something else burned. The mate bond. Wild, feral, undeniable. It had been humming in my blood for months, growing stronger every time he looked at me with hate in his eyes. Every time his hand struck me. Every time he turned away. I knew what it meant now. He was my fated mate, and I was dying. Every breath was fire. My lungs rattled. Blood bubbled at the corner of my mouth. I did not have long, but I had summoned him. I had demanded he come, because some truths were heavier than death, and I would not carry them into the dark alone. The sound of heavy boots echoed down the corridor, slow, measured, unhurried. Each footfall hammered against my heart. The torchlight flickered wildly as the door groaned open on rusted hinges. He stepped inside. Kade. Even then, broken and bleeding on the floor, I felt the pull of him like gravity. He filled the doorway completely. Broad shoulders strained against a black shirt. Storm-dark eyes scanned the cell like a predator surveying territory. His jaw was carved granite, his mouth a hard line. The torchlight caught on the sharp angles of his face, casting shadows that made him look both majestic and cruel. A king surveying his wreckage. He did not speak at first. He simply looked at me, sprawled, ruined, barely human. Something flickered in his eyes. Disgust? Pity? Or just cold satisfaction that justice had finally claimed its due? I forced myself up. My arms trembled violently. Pain shot through every muscle, but I would not die lying down. Not in front of him. I dragged myself to my knees. My blue eyes, once bright with laughter, when we were children racing through the forest, met his with whatever strength I had left. The words scraped out of my raw throat, barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant." The air shifted, thickened. "With your child." His expression did not change, not a flicker, not a breath. I swallowed blood and forced the rest out. "And you're my fated mate." Silence. It stretched so long, I thought he might turn and leave without a word. Then he spoke. His voice was low, controlled, every syllable dipped in ice and venom. "I reject you as my mate." He stepped closer. The heat of him reached me even across the cell. "I never wanted you before." Another step. His shadow fell over me. "And I don't now." The bond snapped. It was not a metaphor. It was physical, real, a golden thread woven through my soul, ripped in two. The pain was beyond screaming. It was white-hot, blinding. 1,000 silver knives carved me open from the inside. My body convulsed. I collapsed forward, palms slammed against the stone, as I gasped for air that would not come. I had loved him once, in the light. When we were children, and he carried me on his back through the river. When he braided wildflowers into my hair and called me Little Moon. When he promised he would always protect me. Now I would die at his feet, because of my sister's crime, because of his grief turned to poison, because fate was crueler than any whip. Darkness rushed in at the edges of my vision, but just before the void claimed me completely. Warmth, not the feeble spark of the pup. Something vast, ancient, maternal, silver light unfurled around me like wings. The moon goddess's embrace wrapped around my shattered pieces, gentle, fierce, unbreakable. A voice like starlight and thunder whispered through my dying mind. "Not yet, little wolf. Your story does not end here." My final thought rose, soft and deadly, carried on a breath I no longer needed. "I loved you in the light, Kade, but I will haunt you in the dark." Chapter 2. The First Breath. A sharp, desperate gasp tore from my throat, like drowning and finally breaking the surface. My eyes flew open. Birds chirped outside the window, bright and careless. Sunlight poured through delicate lace curtains, painting golden patterns across the soft quilt that covered me. The air carried the faint, sweet scent of lavender, my mother's favorite, the one she grew in pots along the windowsill when I was small. I lay perfectly still for a moment, afraid to move, afraid the dream would shatter, but the sheets beneath my fingers were real. Soft cotton, not rough stone. My hands were smooth, unmarked. No scars circled my wrists, no bruises darkened my arms. I scrambled upright, heart pounding, and stumbled from the bed to the full-length mirror across the room. The girl staring back at me stole my breath. Platinum blonde hair cascaded in loose, healthy waves down my back, gleaming like fresh snow under moonlight. Not a strand was matted or broken. My skin glowed porcelain pale and flawless, cheeks flushed with life instead of fever. My blue eyes, wide, clear, alive, looked back at me without the hollow shadow of suffering. I touched my face with trembling fingers. No split lip, no blood, no pain. I lifted my nightgown just enough to see my belly, flat, unmarked, the secret warmth gone. The pup, gone. Because it had never happened yet. I knew exactly where I was. 5 years earlier. The morning of the day before the incident. The day before my twin sister sabotaged the brakes on the Alpha's car. The day before the crash that killed Kade's parents and left his little sister broken in body and mind. The day before, I was blamed, tried, and condemned to slavery for a crime I did not commit. My knees buckled. I caught myself on the edge of the dresser, breath coming in shallow bursts. The moon goddess had not let me die. She had sent me back. Every memory of those 5 brutal years burned behind my eyes. The lashes, the silver chains, the public humiliations, the night he took me in anger and left me bleeding on his floor, the slow realization of the pup, the bond, the rejection. All of it was still there. But my body was untouched, my future unwritten. A soft knock sounded at the door. I froze. The handle turned. My twin sister stepped inside, smiling the same sweet, innocent smile that had fooled the entire pack in my first life. She looked exactly as I remembered her at 19. Delicate features, soft brown curls pinned back with a silver clip, lilac perfume drifting around her like a lye-made scent. She wore a pale blue dress that made her look fragile, breakable, the architect of my ruin. "Sam!" she sang, voice light and carefree. "You're finally awake. Big day today. The gala tonight." She crossed the room and threw her arms around me in a hug that felt like poison wrapped in silk. I let her, for now. Her perfume filled my nose, lilac masking something darker, something rotten underneath. My stomach turned, but I forced my arms to return the embrace, gentle and sisterly. Hana, she pulled back, hands on my shoulders, eyes sparkling with excitement she did not deserve to feel. "You have to start getting ready soon. Everyone will be there, even Kade." She said his name like a gift, like she knew how it once made my heart leap. Now it made it bleed. But I only smiled. A slow, careful curve of lips that did not reach my eyes. "Hello, sister," I said, my voice calm. Too calm. "You look fragile." Her smile faltered. Just for a second. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, gone as quickly as it came. She laughed it off, light and tinkling. "Don't be silly. I'm fine. You're the one who slept half the day away." She turned toward the wardrobe, already chattering about dresses and hairstyles. I watched her reflection in the mirror. She had no idea what was coming. She had no idea that this time, I knew every move she would make, every lie she would tell, every tear she would fake. The future memories blazed inside me like vengeance written in fire. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not lunge across the room and wrap my hands around her throat. Instead, I breathed in the lavender-scented air of my childhood bedroom, felt the sunlight warm on my skin, and let the fire settle into something cold and steady. This time, I was not the lamb. I was the wolf in sheep's clothing, and tonight, at the gala, the hunt would begin. Chapter 3. The broken script. The sound of shattering glass rang out sharp and sudden, like a warning shot across a silent battlefield. Then my voice followed, low and laced with dark amusement. "Fate is a funny thing. Once you know the ending, the beginning loses its teeth." The pack gala glittered beneath a canopy of crystal chandeliers that threw fractured light across the grand hall. The air was thick, cedar from the roaring fireplaces, sharp champagne bubbling in flutes, the mingled scents of expensive perfumes, and the faint wild musk that always clung to wolves in formal clothes. Laughter rose and fell in waves, bright and careless, as if no tragedy loomed on tomorrow's horizon. I moved through the crowd like smoke. My gown was midnight silk, cut close to my body, falling in liquid lines that caught every flicker of light. The fabric whispered against my legs with each step. My platinum blonde hair had been swept up in an intricate twist that left the long column of my neck bare, a few loose strands curling against my porcelain skin like pale flames. Heads turned as I passed, but I felt none of the old shyness. I felt only the steady, cold burn of purpose. I watched him from across the room. Kade. He was 23 here, still the heir, not yet the alpha weighed down by grief. His black tuxedo fit him like it had been sewn onto his body, accentuating the broad shoulders, the narrow waist, the lethal grace that even formal wear could not hide. His dark hair was swept back, revealing the sharp cut of his cheekbones and those storm-dark eyes that scanned the room with easy arrogance. He still wore his father's confidence like armor. He had not yet become the monster who would chain me in silver and break me piece by piece. He was still, in this moment, the boy who had once been my friend. But I knew how precious these last hours of his innocence were, and I would not waste them on nostalgia. I felt his gaze land on me the way heat lands on skin, sudden, undeniable. He expected the girl who used to blush and stammer when he spoke to her, the one who trailed after him like a shadow, wide-eyed and eager for any scrap of attention. Instead, I turned away. I let the silk of my dress brush past his outstretched hand as I passed close enough for him to catch the faint scent of lavender and frost that clung to me now. I did not stop. I did not look back. I felt his confusion, like static electricity crackling in the air behind me. "Samantha?" His voice was low, uncertain, nothing like the cold command it would become. I did not answer. I walked toward the terrace doors, the cool night air beckoning beyond the glass. My heels clicked softly on the marble. Behind me, his footsteps followed. Of course they did. The terrace was quieter. Moonlight spilled silver across the stone balustrade, turning the gardens below into a sea of shadows and whispering leaves. The breeze carried pine and distant rain. I rested my hands on the cool railing and stared out at the forest that bordered our territory, letting the night settle over me like armor. He stopped just behind me, close enough that I felt the warmth radiating from his body, close enough that his scent, cedar and storm, wrapped around me like a memory I no longer trusted. "You're different tonight," he said finally, voice rougher than before. I turned slowly. My blue eyes met his without flinching. "Am I?" I asked, letting the words fall soft and cool between us. "Sure, or have you simply never looked closely enough to notice who I've always been?" His brow furrowed. He took a step closer, searching my face as if the answer were written there. The mate bond, still quiet, still sleeping in this timeline, hummed faintly beneath my skin, a warning and a promise all at once. I held his gaze until he was the one who looked away first. Later, when the music swelled inside and laughter grew louder, I slipped away. Down the servants' corridors, past the kitchens where staff bustled with trays of crystal and silver. My heels made no sound now. I had kicked them off beneath a side table and moved barefoot, the cold floors grounding me. The garage lay at the far end of the east wing, dimly lit by a single hanging bulb. The scent of oil and metal filled the air, sharp and familiar. Rows of sleek black vehicles gleamed in the shadows. The Pax fleet, symbols of status and power. I found her exactly where I knew she would be. My twin sister crouched beside the Alpha's personal car. Her delicate blue gown pooled around her knees like spilled water. A small toolkit lay open beside her. Her hands, those delicate, lying hands, worked quickly and precisely on the brake line, loosening connections with practiced ease. In the original timeline, I had arrived too late. I had seen the tampered line, tried to stop her, failed. The car had crashed the next morning on the winding mountain road. Kade's parents had died instantly. His little sister had survived, but barely, paralyzed, her mind shattered. And I, foolish, trusting, had taken the blame to protect the sister I thought I owed everything. This time, I was early. So this time, I was ready. I moved silently, picking up a heavy wrench from a nearby bench. With calm precision, I reached beneath the car's chassis and disabled the ignition entirely. A few severed wires, a loosened relay. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would cause a crash. The car simply would not start tomorrow. No accident, no deaths, no broken bodies, no 5 years of chains. I straightened just as footsteps echoed behind me. "What are you doing?" I spun. Kade stood in the doorway, backlit by the golden glow from the hall. His silhouette filled the frame, tall and dangerous. His eyes narrowed as they took in the scene, the grease on my hands, the open hood, my bare feet against the concrete. The air between us thickened. He stepped closer. Too close. I smelled rain on his skin, cedar from his cologne, the faint trace of champagne on his breath. His voice dropped to a low growl that vibrated through my chest. "What are you hiding, Sam?" I met his gaze without blinking. Storm meeting ice. "Your future," I whispered. His hand reached for mine, slow, almost hesitant. When his fingers closed around my wrist, sparks shot up my arm like live current. The mate bond stirred, humming beneath the surface, waking just enough to taste what was coming. I did not pull away. Not yet. The night stretched around us, heavy with secrets and the promise of everything I would change, and everything I would make him feel. Chapter 4. The Wolf's Confusion. A low growl rumbled from the garage all morning, the Alpha's car engine turning over, catching for a heartbeat, then dying again with a frustrated cough. Mechanics shouted, tools clanged. The sound carried through the open windows of the pack house like an omen that refused to be ignored. My voice drifted in, quiet and edged with amusement. He was used to me chasing him. He had no idea what to do when I stopped running. Sunlight poured through the tall arched windows of the pack house the morning after the gala, turning dust motes into slow dancing sparks of gold. Breakfast aromas filled the air: crispy bacon, fresh bread, rich coffee, the sweet tang of sliced fruit. Laughter echoed from the dining hall where Kade's parents sat, alive and whole, at the head of the table, their voices warm as they teased each other over old stories. The tragedy had been averted. The car had never left the garage. No twisted metal on the mountain road, no funerals, no broken little sister wheeled into the great hall in silence. The timeline had fractured, and the cracks were already spreading in ways I could not fully predict. But I felt them, and so did he. Kade stalked me all morning, not with cruelty, not yet, but with a bewildered intensity that bordered on obsession. I felt his eyes on me the moment I stepped into the sunlit corridor outside my bedroom. He lingered at the edge of every room I entered, a shadow in tailored black, watching as if I were a puzzle he could not solve. I gave him nothing. I moved through the pack house with quiet, unhurried confidence, greeting elders with polite smiles, helping younger wolves carry trays, laughing softly at jokes that once would have made me blush and hide. I ignored his presence completely. It drove him insane. I saw it in the tightening of his jaw, the way his fingers flexed at his sides, with the storm gathering in those dark eyes every time I passed close enough for him to catch my scent, but not close enough for him to touch. By midday, he cornered me in the library. The room was a sanctuary of polished oak and ancient leather-bound books, sunlight slanting through high stained glass windows in jeweled patterns across the floor. Dust motes floated lazily in the colored beams. The air smelled of old paper, wax, and the faint cedar that always seemed to cling to him. I stood on a small ladder, reaching for a volume on pack law high on the shelf, when his shadow fell over me. Two strong hands braced on the shelves on either side of my head, caging me without touching. The ladder creaked softly under my weight. His body heat pressed against my back like a storm front. "You've changed," he said, voice low and rough, the words brushing the fine hairs at my nape. I did not flinch. I turned slowly on the narrow step until I faced him, my back against the books, my blue eyes level with his throat. I had to tip my chin up to meet his gaze. "Have I?" I asked softly, letting the words linger between us like smoke. "Or have you just started paying attention?" His eyes darkened, searching my face as if the answer were hidden in the curve of my cheek or the cool steadiness of my stare. He was so close I could see the faint silver flecks in his irises, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his pulse beat hard at the base of his throat. One large hand lifted, slow, almost hesitant, and reached toward my face. His fingertips brushed my cheek. I flinched, violently. My body jerked back against the ladder as if he had struck me. Every memory of pain from the first timeline slammed into me at once. The crack of a whip, the burn of silver, the cold contempt in his eyes the night he rejected me. My breath caught, sharp and audible in the quiet room. He froze. His hand hovered in the air between us, fingers still curled, as if holding the ghost of my skin. He saw the fear in my eyes, raw, unhidden. Fear he had not caused. Not in this life. Not yet. Something fractured in his arrogance, a hairline crack through marble. "Who hurt you?" His voice was raw, almost broken, the growl underneath it protective rather than threatening. The question hung heavy in the sunlit dust. I felt the mate bond stir again, deeper this time, tasting the shape of what could have been, what still might be if I let it. But I was not ready to hand him my heart again, so not even a piece of it. "You did, Kade. You just haven't done it yet." The words burned on my tongue, but I swallowed them. Instead, I lied. "No one," I said, stepping sideways out of his reach, my voice steady even as my heart thundered. "Yet." I descended the ladder with deliberate grace, the silk of my morning dress whispering against my legs. I did not look back as I walked toward the door, though I felt his gaze boring into my back like brands. His frustration crackled in the air behind me, want and confusion, and something dangerously close to need. He had spent years accustomed to my quiet adoration. Now the chase had reversed, and the wolf had no idea how to hunt a prey that refused to run. But he would learn. I would make sure of it. Chapter 5. Venom and Velvet. The heavy slam of a door echoed through the east wing like a gunshot, followed by hushed, frantic whispers that leaked underneath it. My sister's voice, high and trembling, laced with tears that came too easily. I stood just outside her bedroom, hidden in the shadow of a marble pillar, and listened. My voice slid in, low and satisfied. She thought her poison was subtle. She had no idea I'd already built immunity. Inside the room, my twin paced. I could picture her perfectly, cheeks flushed, brown curls coming loose from their pins, delicate hands twisting the fabric of her skirt as she muttered excuses to herself. The failed sabotage had rippled outward faster than she expected. The Alpha's mechanics had found the tampered brake line, but because I had disabled the ignition first, the evidence pointed only to interference, so not intent to kill. Questions were being asked, fingers were pointing, and she was panicking. The door flew open. She stormed out, eyes red-rimmed, and nearly collided with me. "Sam!" she gasped, clutching my arms like I was her lifeline. "Please, you have to help me. They're asking questions. Father summoned me, and the mechanic said someone was in the garage last night." Her tears fell perfectly, one after another, like she'd practiced them in a mirror. In my first life, I would have melted. I would have hugged her, promised to fix it, taken the blame to protect the sister I thought was fragile. This time, I let her grip tighten while I remained perfectly still. My face stayed calm, almost gentle. "Why would they suspect you, sister?" I asked, voice soft as silk over steel. "Unless you gave them reason to." Her breath hitched. The tears slowed. She searched my face, looking for the old Samantha, the one who would sacrifice everything for family loyalty. She didn't find her. I tilted my head, letting a small, sympathetic smile curve my lips. "You look pale," I murmured. "Perhaps you should sit down before you faint. Wouldn't want anyone thinking you're guilty of something." Her fingers loosened on my arms. For the first time, real fear flickered behind her eyes. Footsteps approached from the corridor behind her. Heavy, deliberate. We both turned. Kade stood there, arms crossed, shoulder leaning against the wall as if he'd been watching for longer than either of us realized. His storm-dark gaze moved from her tear-streaked face to my serene one. He had heard everything. In the original timeline, but he had always believed her, protected her, seen her fragility as truth and my strength as threat. Now something shifted behind his eyes as he took in her desperation and my quiet fire. The mate bond hummed between us, low, insistent, tasting the air like ozone before lightning. His jaw tightened. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence said enough. Later that afternoon, the forest clearing rang with the thud of fists against padded dummies, the sharp exhale of breath, the controlled fury of bodies pushed to their limits. Rain had begun to fall, light at first, a soft mist that clung to skin and hair, then heavier, turning the packed earth to slick mud. I stood in the center of the training grounds in black leggings and a fitted tank, platinum hair braided tight against my skull. My porcelain skin glistened with rain and sweat. I unleashed 5 years of pent-up rage on the sparring dummy, every strike precise, lethal, graceful. A roundhouse kick snapped its head back. An elbow drove into the torso with a force that would have cracked ribs. My breathing stayed even, controlled. I had learned to fight in chains. This was freedom. The rain intensified, drumming on leaves, soaking through fabric until it clung like a second skin. I felt him approach before I heard him. Kade stepped into the clearing, rain darkening his gray shirt until it molded to every hard line of muscle. Water traced the sharp edges of his face, caught in his lashes, slid down his throat. He didn't speak. He simply walked forward, took position opposite me, and raised his fists. A challenge, an invitation. I smiled, slow, was sharp, and mirrored his stance. We circled. The pack members training nearby drifted away, sensing the charge in the air, leaving us alone beneath the downpour. He struck first, fast, testing. I blocked, countered, spun away. Again. Harder. Our bodies moved like they had done this dance 1,000 times. Because in some ways, they had. Every parry, every grapple, carried the weight of memories only I held. The nights he had loomed over me in hate, the times his hands had caused pain instead of this controlled heat. Now his hands caught my wrist, twisted, pulled me off balance. I flowed with it, used his momentum to flip us. We hit the mud together, me on top for a heartbeat, thighs straddling his hips, hands pinning his shoulders. Rain pounded down between us. His chest rose and fell hard beneath me, and water traced the curve of my collarbone, dripped from my braid onto his throat. His hands gripped my waist, not to throw me off, but to hold. The heat between us was undeniable, a living thing that roared louder than the storm. Thunder crashed overhead. His eyes, dark, wild, locked on mine. His lips parted. "What are you doing to me?" he breathed, voice rough with rain and something deeper. I leaned down, close enough that my wet hair curtained us both, close enough that my breath mingled with his. My mouth hovered over his, just a whisper away. "Exactly what you did to me," I said against his lips, letting every word carry the weight of years. "Making you feel everything." His fingers tightened on my waist, almost bruising. For a moment, I thought he would close the distance. I wanted him to, and I hated that I wanted it. I pushed off him instead, rolling to my feet in one fluid motion. Rain streamed down my face like tears I refused to shed. I offered no hand to help him up. He rose slowly, water cascading from his hair, eyes never leaving mine. The space between us crackled, want, confusion, the first threads of something neither of us could name yet. But I felt it, and so did he. The venom of my past was turning into velvet desire, and I was only just beginning to wrap it around him. Chapter 6. The Moon Goddess's Whisper. Wind howled through the ancient pines at the edge of our territory, rattling branches like bones, and carrying the low, ethereal chime of unseen bells. Soft, distant, impossible. My voice rose against it, quiet but certain. Some truths are too heavy for daylight. They only speak when the world is quiet enough to listen. I left the pack house at dusk, when the sky bled from gold to bruised purple and the first stars pricked through the veil. No one saw me go. I wore a simple black cloak over my clothes, hood drawn up to hide the pale gleam of my platinum hair. My footsteps made no sound on the moss-covered path that wound deeper into the forbidden fringes of the forest. The air grew colder, heavier, scented with damp earth and something older, resin from trees that had stood for centuries. the faint metallic tang of mist rolling off hidden springs. I had come here for answers. The pack seer lived in a crooked cottage built into the roots of an enormous oak, its windows glowing with soft amber light. Smoke curled from the chimney, carrying the thick, heady scent of burning sage, myrrh, and something sharper. Nightbloom, a flower that only opened under moonlight and was said to thin the veil between worlds. I pushed the door open without knocking. The crone sat hunched over a low table, gnarled hands wrapped around a steaming cup. Her hair was white as frost, spilling wild over her shoulders. Her eyes, milky, sightless in the ordinary way, fixed on me the moment I entered. She did not startle, she recoiled. Her cup rattled against the table as she jerked back, those blind eyes widening as if she saw more than anyone with perfect vision ever could. "You carry the shadow of death, child," she rasped, voice like dry leaves scraping stone. "But also, rebirth." I closed the door behind me. The room was warm, cluttered with drying herbs hanging from the rafters, shelves of jars filled with things that glinted and floated, a fire crackling low in the hearth. I pulled my hood down and stepped into the light. "Tell me why," I said. She tilted her head, listening to something I could not hear. Then she reached across the table and seized my hand. Her skin was paper-thin, veins dark beneath it, but her grip was iron. Images flooded me, not mine, but hers. A golden thread snapped in two, silver light wrapping around a dying girl. A goddess with eyes like twin full moons leaning down, whispering words of fire and second chances. The crone released me as suddenly as she had grabbed me, breathing hard. "Your soul was poisoned," she said. "Not yours, his." I went still. "Kade's?" She nodded slowly. "In the life you remember, dark magic wove itself into his grief. Someone close, very close, fed it thread by thread, until the boy he was twisted into something cruel. He was not born to be the monster who rejected his mate. He was made so." The words struck like a blade between my ribs. I had hated him cleanly, perfectly, for 5 years. Now grief, for the boy he had been, for the mate he might have become, for the life we both lost, rose like bile in my throat. It was more dangerous than hate, because it softened me, because it made me want to save him. So I left the cottage with more questions than answers, and a heart heavier than when I arrived. The path back wound past the sacred lake, a mirror-still body of water ringed by silver birches, said to reflect truths the moon wanted seen. I stopped at its edge. Moonlight poured down, turning the surface to liquid mercury. My reflection stared back, platinum hair loose now, blue eyes fierce but tired, porcelain skin luminous in the glow. I did not sit. I simply stood, letting the cold night air scour my lungs. I did not hear him approach. One moment, I was alone. The next, his scent, cedar and storm, wrapped around me. Kade stepped out of the shadows between the trees and stopped a few paces away. He wore only a dark shirt and trousers, sleeves rolled up despite the chill, as if the cold could not touch him. Moonlight carved sharp lines across his face, caught in the droplets of mist on his hair. He did not speak at first. He simply sat on a fallen log several feet away, leaving space between us. An unspoken offer, not a demand. The silence stretched, comfortable in its discomfort. Finally, he broke it. "I can't stop thinking about you," he admitted, voice rough, almost angry at himself. "And I don't understand why." The words hung in the silver air. I turned to look at him. His profile was stark against the moonlit water, strong jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the lake as if it held answers he could not find in me. The mate bond stirred again, stronger now, a low vibration that resonated in my bones. I felt his confusion, his frustration, the pull he could not name. I felt it because I had lived the other side of it, the agony of knowing and being denied. Part of me wanted to tell him everything, to spill the blood and chains and rejection at his feet and watch him break under the weight. But I was not ready, and he was not ready. He turned his head. Our eyes met across the moonlight. He leaned forward slowly, elbows on knees, body language open, vulnerable in a way the future Kade never allowed himself to be. His breath clouded faintly in the cold. He moved closer, not fast, not demanding, just enough that I felt the warmth of him against the night chill. His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed a strand of hair from my cheek with fingertips that trembled almost imperceptibly. His breath was warm against my lips. He leaned in. I felt the moment his intention shifted, the moment desire overtook confusion. My heart slammed against my ribs. For one heartbeat, I almost let him. I almost let the past dissolve in the possibility of this new present. But I pulled back. Just enough. His eyes opened, dark and searching. "I don't want your desire, Kade," I said, voice low but steady, every word deliberate. "I want your respect, and you haven't earned it." The air between us crackled. His jaw clenched, frustration, want, and something rawer warring across his face. He did not argue. He did not push. He simply stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "Then tell me how," he said finally, voice rough with moonlight and need. I stepped back, letting the cold night rush in where his warmth had been. I did not answer. I turned and walked away into the trees, leaving him alone by the silver lake with the echo of my words and the growing ache of a bond he could not yet name. But I felt his gaze on my back long after the darkness swallowed me. The wolf was learning the taste of the hunt, and I was only just beginning to let him run. Chapter 7. The Trap is Sprung. A single crystal glass tapped against a microphone, clear, deliberate, the sound cutting through the murmur of the crowded hall like a blade through silk. Then my sister's voice followed, sweet and venomous. A toast to the happy couple. The great hall blazed with firelight that night, torches and chandeliers throwing golden flickers across hundreds of faces. Long tables groaned under platters of roasted venison, honey-glazed fruits, and dark wine that caught the flames like blood. As banners of the pack's silver wolf hung from the rafters, swaying gently in the warm updraft. Laughter and conversation rose in a constant hum, the air thick with roasted meat, beeswax candles, and the faint wild musk of wolves dressed in their finest. Another pack gathering, this one to celebrate the safe return of a scouting party from the northern borders. Music played softly in the background, strings and drums weaving through the noise. I stood near the edge of the crowd in a gown of deep crimson silk that hugged my body like a second skin, the color bold against my porcelain-pale complexion. My platinum hair had been left loose tonight, cascading in soft waves down my back, catching the firelight like molten silver. I held a glass of wine I had not tasted, blue eyes scanning the room with calm precision. My sister stood on the raised dais near the Alpha's table, crystal flute raised high, cheeks flushed with just enough wine to make her look innocent and overcome with emotion. She had waited weeks for this moment, cornered, desperate. Her earlier plan had failed. Questions had circled closer. Whispers had begun. Now she would strike first. Her gaze found mine across the hall. She smiled, small, sad, trembling, the perfect victim. "Before we drink to our brave scouts," she said, voice carrying clearly, amplified by the slight magic woven into the dais for announcements, "I must speak a painful truth." The hall quieted. Heads turned. I felt Kade's attention snap to me from where he stood near his parents. Sharp, immediate. My sister's eyes filled with tears that spilled over with practiced grace. "I can no longer stay silent," she continued, voice breaking. "My own sister, Samantha, has been practicing dark magic. I've seen it. Forbidden books hidden in her room, strange symbols carved beneath her bed. And last night, during the gala, I believe she tampered with the Alpha's car." Gasps rippled outward. Accusations of dark magic were grave, punishable by exile at best, death at worst. In my first life, this was exactly how it had begun. the exact crime that had destroyed me. But this time, I was ready. I did not move. I did not gasp or protest. I simply stood still, silent, spine straight, chin lifted. Every eye in the hall turned to me. I felt the weight of them: shock, suspicion, fear. And I looked only at Kade. My eyes said everything. Choose. Believe her, or look at the truth. The room held its breath. My sister's tears flowed freely now, her voice trembling with convincing sorrow. "I didn't want to believe it," she whispered. "She's my blood. But the evidence. I have proof." She gestured dramatically. 2 guards stepped forward, carrying a small wooden box. They opened it on the dais table. Inside lay items that looked damning: a black-bound book with strange runes, a vial of dark liquid, a silver dagger etched with symbols. Items that had never been in my possession. Items I had planted in hers weeks ago, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her bedroom, waiting for this exact moment. A small crystal orb, enchanted by a trusted ally I had quietly recruited, sat unnoticed among the crowd near the dais. At my subtle nod, it activated. Shimmering light exploded above the table, projecting images into the air for all to see. My sister's bedroom. Her hands carefully placing the book beneath the floorboard, her fingers wrapping the dagger in cloth and hiding it. Her own voice, recorded in secret. "If they find these in Sam's room, no one will doubt it." The hall erupted. Gasps turned to shouts. My sister's face drained of color. She stumbled back, eyes wide with genuine terror now. "No, I didn't." But the projection continued, merciless. More images, more whispered plans, more proof. I still had not spoken a word. Kade's gaze had not left me once. He watched the images play out, jaw tight, fists clenched at his sides. Then he looked at my sister, the girl he had always shielded, always believed fragile and in need of protection. Her desperation was laid bare for all to see. He looked back at me, at the quiet fire in my eyes, at the absolute absence of fear. His growl rumbled low, deep, protective, directed not at me, at her. "Enough," he said. The single word cracked through the hall like thunder. He moved, not toward his parents, not toward the guards, straight toward the dais. He stepped between my sister and me, his broad back a wall shielding me from her accusations, from the crowd's stares. The pack gasped. The power dynamic shattered like glass beneath a boot. My sister stared at him in disbelief. "Kade! No, you don't understand." He turned on her, eyes dark with betrayal. "I understand perfectly," he said, voice low and lethal. The guards moved forward, not toward me, but toward her. The Alpha, Kade's father, rose slowly from his seat, face grim. The hall fell into stunned silence. My sister's carefully constructed trap had sprung, but the jaws had closed around her own throat, and Kade had chosen whose side to stand on, for the first time, without knowing the full truth. He had chosen me. The firelight danced across his profile as he stood guard in front of me, and for one dangerous heartbeat, the ice around my heart cracked. Just a little. Chapter 8. The Shadow of the Past. A heart monitor beeped in my mind. Slow, steady, then accelerating wildly as adrenaline flooded every vein. My voice cut through the chaos, low and steady despite the storm. "Some wounds aren't meant to kill you. They're meant to wake you up." The great hall erupted in the aftermath of the projection. Shouts overlapped. Accusations, demands for explanation. The Alpha's deep command for order. Guards closed in on my sister. Her face had gone deathly pale, young tears drying into streaks of salt as raw panic took over. She screamed my name like a curse. "You did this! You framed me!" But no one listened. The evidence floated above the dais in shimmering light, undeniable. She thrashed as the guards took her arms, twisting wildly, eyes darting like a cornered animal searching for escape. Then she saw it. The silver dagger, one of the planted items, lying on the table where the box had been opened. Moon-forged silver, etched with false runes. Her hand shot out. She seized it. Time slowed. The blade flashed as she lunged. Not at the guards, not at the Alpha. At me. Her face twisted with pure, unmasked rage. "You were supposed to suffer, not me!" The crowd recoiled. I did not move. I had seen this coming, but I had not seen him. Kade moved faster than thought. He intercepted her mid-lunge, body slamming into hers with controlled force. The dagger meant for my heart buried itself deep in his shoulder instead. A sickening thud. Silver met flesh. He did not even grunt, only staggered back a step, one hand closing around the hilt as blood, dark, too fast, spread across his black shirt. Silver burns wolves from the inside out. It is poison to our kind. The hall exploded into chaos. Screams, bodies surging, the Alpha roaring orders. My sister dropped to her knees, dagger clattering from her numb fingers, eyes wide with the realization of what she had just done. But I saw none of it. I saw only Kade. His face drained of color, jaw locked against the pain that must have been excruciating. He looked down at the blade protruding from his shoulder, then at me. Something in his eyes shifted. The shock of the silver triggered it. The mate bond, already humming close to the surface, snapped fully into place. Not gently, violently, like a dam breaking. A flood of visions crashed through him, through us both. He saw it all. Me in chains, skin lacerated, platinum hair matted with blood and grime. Me on my knees in the dungeon, whispering the secrets of the pup and the bond. His own voice, cold, merciless, delivering the rejection. "I reject you as my mate. I never wanted you before, and I don't now." My body convulsing as the bond tore. My death, the moon goddess's light, everything. He staggered, not from the silver burning through his veins, from the horror, from the weight of a future he had not lived, but now remembered as if he had. He looked at me like I was a ghost, like I was already dead. "What did I do to you?" he whispered, voice breaking on every word. Blood dripped steadily from the wound, pooling dark on the stone floor. The metallic scent mixed with the sudden electric ozone of the mate bond locking into place, sharp, overwhelming. I moved before anyone else could. I reached him as his knees buckled, caught him, lowered him gently until he sat against the dais steps, my hands already pressing around the dagger's entry to stem the bleeding. The hall blurred around us, voices distant, bodies moving in slow motion. I leaned close, my platinum hair falling forward to curtain us both. My voice was soft, meant only for him. "You haven't done it yet," I said, fingers steady despite the tremor in my chest. "And you never will." His storm-dark eyes searched mine, wide with agony and something far worse, guilt that had not yet been earned. Blood soaked through my fingers, warm and slick. His hand came up, trembling, to cover mine on his shoulder. The bond sang between us, painful, bright, alive. He tried to speak again, but the silver was spreading, weakening him. I pressed harder, leaning my forehead to his for one brief, stolen moment. The crowd closed in, healers shouting, the Alpha barking orders, guards dragging my screaming sister away. But in that heartbeat, it was only us. The shadow of the past had fallen across him fully, and for the first time, he carried its weight. I felt the ice around my heart crack wider, dangerously wide, because now he knew, and knowing changed everything. Chapter 9. The Atonement. Silence pressed in, she broken only by the steady tick of an antique clock on the mantel and the soft rhythm of breathing. His, slow and even at last. My voice rose, quiet but unflinching. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else. It's the chain you finally break around your own heart. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows of Kade's chambers, painting silver bars across the polished oak floor and the heavy four-poster bed where he lay. The room smelled of healing herbs, bitter yarrow, soothing lavender, sharp antiseptic, and the faint metallic trace of blood that still lingered beneath it all. He had been unconscious for 3 days. The silver dagger had burned deep, poisoning his blood, slowing his heart to a dangerous crawl. Healers had worked in shifts, drawing the toxin out drop by drop, stitching muscle, forcing tonics down his throat while he thrashed in fever dreams. I had not left his side. Not once. I sat in a high-backed chair pulled close to the bed, crimson gown traded for a simple black dress that fell soft around me. My platinum hair hung loose, unbrushed, framing my face in pale waves. My blue eyes were tired, shadowed, but steady. I had watched every flicker of pain cross his face, every muttered apology that escaped his lips in delirium, every time he reached blindly for my hand and found it already there. Now the fever had broken, his breathing had evened, and he was waking. His eyelids fluttered. Storm-dark lashes lifted slowly, revealing eyes that were clearer than they had been in days, but haunted. He stared at the canopy above him for a long moment, as if piecing together where he was. Then his gaze found me, and everything he had seen in the Bond's vision flooded back. His face crumpled, not with pain from the wound, with something far deeper. "I saw what I became," he whispered, voice cracked and raw from disuse. "I saw what I did to you." The words hung heavy in the moonlit room. He tried to push himself up, wincing as the healing wound pulled. I stood instantly, hand gentle but firm on his chest, pressing him back against the pillows. "Don't," I said softly. "You'll tear the stitches." He let me guide him down, but his eyes never left mine. Tears, actual tears, gathered at the corners of those fierce eyes. An alpha reduced to this, broken open. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said, voice shaking. "I don't even deserve to breathe the same air as you." His hand found mine on the blanket, fingers wrapping around my wrist with desperate care, as if afraid I would vanish. I saw the chains, the blood, the rejection. I felt it, like it was my own soul tearing. "I felt you die, Samantha." His voice cracked completely on my name. I sat on the edge of the bed, letting him hold my hand, letting the warmth of his skin sink into mine. The mate bond thrummed between us, steady now, no longer violent, but deep and aching. I had spent 3 days replaying every moment of my first life. Every lash, every humiliation, every time I had whispered his name in the dark, like a prayer he would never answer. And I had realized something. My revenge had never truly been about watching him suffer. It had been about never letting him make me suffer again. But watching him suffer now, watching guilt eat him alive from the inside, did not feel like victory. It felt like loss, for both of us. I turned my hand in his, threading our fingers together. The spark where our skin met was warm, not painful, not anymore. "I cannot erase the monster I was in your nightmares, Samantha," he said, voice barely above a whisper, thick with self-loathing. "But I can spend the rest of this life hunting him down so he never touches you again." His thumb traced slow circles over my knuckles, reverent. Every touch asked permission. Every look begged for mercy he believed he did not deserve. I leaned closer, moonlight catching in my hair, spilling across his face. My voice was soft, but it carried every ounce of truth I had earned through blood and rebirth. "Then start now," I whispered, "by choosing me, not out of guilt, but because you see me." He drew a shuddering breath. His free hand lifted, slow, trembling, and cupped my cheek with infinite care, as if I were the fragile one, as if I might break. "I see you," he said, voice rough with devotion and wonder. "Finally. All of you. The girl I knew. The woman you became. The fire you carried through hell. I see you, Samantha." His thumb brushed the corner of my eye, catching a tear I had not realized had fallen. "And I will spend every day proving I am worthy of the second chance you've given me. Given us." The bond sang. Warm, golden, whole. I leaned into his touch, for the first time since my rebirth. So I let myself feel the full weight of it, not the pain of what had been, but the promise of what could be. His hand tightened on mine. Not possession. Partnership. The clock ticked on. Moonlight shifted across the floor. And in that quiet room, surrounded by the scent of healing and the soft hush of night, something inside me finally unclenched. Forgiveness was not weakness. It was the strongest choice I had ever made. And I made it, not for him, but for the woman I had been reborn to become. The one who would never wear chains again. Chapter 10. The Alpha and the Equal. The roar of the crowd began muffled, as if underwater, then swelled into a thunderous wave that shook the ancient beams of the great hall. My voice rose above it, steady and fierce with triumph. I was reborn in ashes. Today, I rise as the flame. Justice had been served. My twin sister's crimes, sabotage, attempted murder, the web of lies that had nearly destroyed us all, had been laid bare in a formal trial that lasted 3 days. Witnesses testified. The magical projections replayed every damning moment. Even her final, frantic attack with the silver dagger could not be denied. The pack had watched in stunned silence as the delicate, fragile girl they had pitied unraveled into something venomous. In the end, the Alpha, Kade's father, passed sentence with a heavy heart but unflinching resolve. Exile, permanent. Beyond the borders of our territory, stripped of pack bonds, marked so that no allied clan would ever shelter her. She had been escorted to the edge of the forest at dawn, screaming my name until the trees swallowed her voice. The pack had gathered again that same evening, not for mourning, but for renewal. The great hall blazed with light and life. Torches burned bright along the walls. Tables had been cleared to form a wide circle in the center. Every pack member stood shoulder to shoulder. Elders, warriors, young wolves barely shifted for the first time, all facing the raised dais where the Alpha and Luna waited. Kade's parents, still alive, still strong, because I had changed the script. The air hummed with anticipation, scented with pine smoke from the great hearth, fresh evergreen boughs woven into garlands overhead, and the warm musk of wolves united. I stood at the back of the circle, crimson gown traded for a gown of silver white that caught every flicker of flame and moonlight streaming through the high windows. My platinum hair flowed loose down my back, a river of pale fire. My blue eyes were fierce, unbowed. No longer a slave, no longer a victim. The Alpha raised his hands. The hall quieted instantly. Tonight, he said, voice carrying to every corner, we name the successor who will lead us into the next era. Kade stepped forward from the shadows beside his parents. He wore formal black, the wound on his shoulder healed to a faint scar beneath the fabric. His posture was straight, proud, but when his gaze found mine across the crowd, something softer broke through the Alpha mask. Devotion, promise. The Alpha continued. My son has proven himself worthy in ways we could never have foreseen. He protected this pack. He uncovered betrayal. He defended the innocent. Murmurs of agreement rippled outward. Kade's father turned to him, so placing a heavy silver medallion, the mark of the heir, around his neck. Then he stepped back, and Kade stepped forward. The crowd waited for him to ascend the dais alone. He did not. He paused, turned, and extended his hand to me. The hall held its breath. I won't lead alone, he said, voice deep and unwavering, carrying the full authority of the next Alpha. Every eye followed his gaze to me. I felt the weight of it, curiosity, respect, awe. I walked forward. The crowd parted like water. My steps were steady, chin high. The silver-white gown whispered against the stone floor. I reached the dais, placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm, strong, certain. Together, we ascended the steps. The pack erupted, not in shock, in cheers. Wolves howled, joyful, triumphant, with fists pounded against chests in the old salute of loyalty. Kade's parents stepped aside, pride shining in their eyes. We turned to face the pack, side by side, equals. Later, when the ceremony ended and the hall emptied into celebration, we slipped away to the balcony that overlooked the endless forest. The full moon hung huge and silver above the treetops, bathing everything in cool, ethereal light. The air was crisp, scented with pine and distant snow. We stood at the stone railing, shoulders brushing. Below us, the pack's voices rose in song and laughter. Above us, stars wheeled in an endless sky. Kade turned to me. Moonlight carved his face in sharp, beautiful lines. He took both my hands in his. His voice was rough with everything he had carried: guilt, gratitude, love too vast for words. "I, Kade," he said formally, but with trembling intensity, "accept you, Samantha. In this life and every life after, you are my fate." The bond flared, golden, complete. I stepped closer, rising on my toes until our foreheads touched. My platinum hair spilled forward, mingling with the dark strands of his. I smiled. Slow, real, radiant. "And you," I whispered, "are my choice." His arms came around me. Not to claim, to hold, to cherish. I leaned into him, feeling the steady thunder of his heart against mine. The forest stretched endlessly before us, wild, free, ours. A single wolf's howl rose from the trees below, not in mourning, but in triumph. Others joined, a chorus, a promise, a new beginning. I closed my eyes and let the sound wash over me. I had died in chains. I had been reborn in fire. And now, beneath the full moon, with my mate, my equal, at my side, I rose as the queen I was always meant to be. The ashes were gone, only the flame remained, and it burned bright enough to light the world.